another. Now, you told me that you're rather upset this week to learn that a chap called Ed Victor,
Yes.
who was described as a flamboyant party-going killer agent who dined with publishers and left them feeling as though they had mislaid an arm and a leg,
Right.
has in fact died. Now, this guy was super literary agent,
He was the
wasn't
first kind of super literary agent. He represented people like Frederick Forsyth,
Right.
Erica Jong.
Yeah.
I think he was involved with Alistair Campbell's diaries. I mean, basically, he was the guy that you went to. He was the go-to guy if you could get him to represent you, because
Yes.
he was famous for, as one person described him, walking into a room full of publishers and walking out with a cheque for 10 million quid.
Right.
And he just had this incredible way about him. He was very tall, apparently.
Yes.
And a guy who just was full of compassion, full of confidence,
Right.
and full of chutzpah as well.
Yeah.
One of the things he was famous for saying, and I dare say there will be some Corbynistas out there who will say this is awful, because he was a very wealthy guy as a result of the money that he got. He had a place in East Hampton in America,
Right.
which of course is on Long Island, very ritzy part of the world, and he was known to have at least 3 Bentleys, and he said that
Is he British, by the way?
he's American.
He's American,
But
right.
he lived in Britain. He came to Cambridge
I see,
University
yeah.
and lived in Britain for a long time
Right.
with his first wife, and I
Yes.
think they then split up. He then got remarried in America
Yeah.
and came back to live in Britain. He was based in London.
Right.
And he famously used to say to people that he really looked forward to getting his winter fuel allowance from the government as a pensioner, because it was just enough money to fill the Bentley.
Well, one of the Bentleys.
One of the Bentleys,
Yeah.
with petrol.
Well, it says here that he went. What he did was he created a huge list of celebrity authors who became friends. He went on to build up a client list of celebrated and best-selling authors whose names were always in the press, with his own name often alongside them. Alongside them. Clients became friends and friends became clients. The list came to include Iris Murdoch, obviously a best-selling author, Douglas Adams of Watership Down fame,
Yes.
Jack Higgins. Do you ever read Jack Higgins' books?
I don't think I've ever read one, no.
Jack Higgins wrote The Eagle Has Landed.
Right.
And that was the fantastic book about the plot by the elite German squad to murder Winston Churchill on a visit to Ireland.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it was turned into a film.
I've seen the film.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
fantastic film
Okay.
and book. Douglas Adams, Jack Higgins, Annie Robinson,
Yes.
of course, one of the wealthiest ex-journo friends of ours.
Indeed.
Very, very
But that's because
successful.
of her television success rather
Well,
than her
yeah,
book
but I mean,
success,
on the
isn't it?
back of that, she did write some very best-selling books.
Yeah.
And guess who most recently has become client and friend? Not the current Prime Minister, but the previous one.
Oh, right.
David Cameron.
David Cameron,
Yeah,
yeah. So his book will be coming out shortly, I think.
Yes,
but the
that's
reason
right.
that it caught my eye was because, as you know, you've often taunted me on the basis that I've never had a book published, whereas
right.
you have, of course,
Yes.
with Rooney Tunes.
Excuse me, what do you
And,
mean, a book published?
Well,
You
you've had
mean
a couple
several?
of books published.
Yeah, several.
Well, when you say
several.
several, you've
Yeah.
had 2, to my knowledge.
No.
What's the third one, then?
Rooney Tunes.
Well, Rooney Tunes is 1.
There's an awful lot of bubbly in Brazil.
Yeah, that's 2.
Both barrels from Brazil.
Okay, 3.
Okay.
So that's 3.
No. I've contributed to a book on Colleen Rooney.
What do you mean you've contributed?
Well, I directed it, so to speak. And,
Who published it?
No, I know who published it. It's
You don't, do you?
Yeah, I do. It's our old friend from
What, whose name you keep forgetting? John Blake.
John Blake. That's right. Yeah.
Well, he published all your books, didn't he?
No. The Brazil books were published by, funnily enough, a publisher owned by the Daily Mirror Group, who published mostly sports books, like on horse racing and all that, but felt that mine was so good they'd break the mould and create a new division for it, which is what they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, when I was in one of my periods of resting, shall we say, after
Yes.
I'd been fired from somewhere,
Yes.
I decided to write a novel, right?
Yeah.
And, yeah, I did.
What a joke. Was
No.
it about yourself?
No, but it was about newspapers, and it was about
Right.
a lot of skullduggery, and actually there was
Yeah.
some murder that went on as well.
Yeah, well, you know all about
Yeah,
that.
well, I did know all about it, and it was actually rather good. And I had a friend at the time who was a former editor, who I had lunch with one day, and I said, I've written this book, but I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
He said, you must give it to my friend Ed Victor.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I've never heard of this bloke.
who's
I don't know.
Ed Victor?
I didn't know who he was.
Who was the editor, by the way?
It was Richard Addis.
Richard, yes, I see.
Who
Yeah.
was a good friend of mine.
Yes, that's
and of
right,
course he knew all these kind of people.
Yeah,
you know,
of course,
'cause it was his thing. And I had to go into the bookshop and find out who this guy was. So I looked up in the Writers and Artists yearbook who he was, and it said that he was Erica Jong's agent and Frederick Forsyth's agent and all this.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is probably a bit too highfalutin for me, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, dutifully, I sent it off to him. And one of the things that I've read in his obituary was that people used to say to him at parties, you know, how do I get my manuscripts in front of you, you know, Ed? And how is that possible? How can I possibly do it? And he just used to say to him, no, you can't.
Yeah.
Just can't do it.
Yeah.
And I sent him a covering letter saying that Richard Addis had suggested I'd send it to him.
Yeah.
And he actually read it. And he sent me back this very, very pleasant letter in which he said that my...
It's rubbish.
No, he said, in fact, I always remember the two...
published,
I always remember the two words that he used. He said it was very entertaining and very compelling, he said. And he said, I know for sure that you will get this published. He said, but at the moment, I've got so much going on with all of my clients who I have to spend an awful lot of time with that I feel I can't give you the kind of... sort of attention that you would require. He said, but please do persevere with it because you will definitely get it published.
So why wasn't it published?
Because I then got another job and I just gave up on it. I never sent it to anybody else.
One of the world's leading literary agents had given you an endorsement on something you'd written and you didn't even bother pursuing it with a publisher.
Well, it wasn't I didn't bother.
Honestly, what a drip you are.
What do you mean a drip?
What a give-up drip
no,
you
not
are,
at all.
you know?
It's not a question of being a give-up drip.
If you can't pick it up off a bar or put it in an oven, you couldn't care less.
Put it in an oven?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well, you're always going on about...
Starting to get delirious.
No. Going on about cooking these exotic foods, which, you
I quite enjoy cooking,
into pictures on Twitter.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I never know if they're yours or not. As far as I'm concerned, you've probably bought them from one of those shops in Borough Market.
Yeah, you wouldn't know, would you? Because you can't recognise decent food unless it comes out of a can.
Now, it says here about Ed Victor, right, just to fill in a bit more information. Yeah. By far the best-known literary agent in London, Victor had his own agency and won a reputation for forcing huge advances out of publishers for clients who included Andrew Marr, who is the BBC presenter.
That's right.
Frederick Forsyth, you've just mentioned.
I mentioned him,
And Nigella Lawson.
There you are.
Who named one of the grilled steak recipes in her book, Nigella's Express, Ed's Tender Rump.
There you go.
That was a joke.
Yeah. Seen the time, by the way.
She and he would eat for one another. Nigella tells me that what she's eating for me, and I tell her what I'm eating for her. We're both very greedy eaters. It's a very strange relationship.
Well, lots of people have strange relationships, and you think they're strange just because they have relationships. Anyway, coming up in the next hour, it's the Porky Quiz.
Yes.
We'll get off this subject.
And a man who recognises faces.
Clearly losing the plot. This is talkSPORT.